Hi, I'm Anthony Jacquin. When I first started studying hypnosis over 20 years ago, what was very much in vogue at the time was this deep study of what are sometimes called language patterns. This was partly the fallout, I think, of the pioneers of NLP, Bandler and Grinder, who in their modelling exercise of exquisite therapists had modelled the language patterns of those therapists and then laid them out for all of us to use. Two books in particular that stood out at the time were Patterns, Volume 1 and Volume 2, where they'd studied and essentially unpacked the language patterns of Milton Erickson. So I kind of dived into that, and also their work, The Structure of Magic, Volume 1 and 2. And there was also a pack of playing cards around at the time that worked as a training aid. These were called Zebu cards, and they had 52 different language patterns. And it kind of left me feeling that, I just needed to learn a little bit more. I just needed to master a few more of these language patterns, and then I too would be able to communicate in that fashion. Now, all I can say about that is the more of this work I've done over the years, actually the simpler and clearer my expression has become, especially in therapeutic exchanges. It's not so much that I don't believe that you should learn these language patterns. They certainly aid your flexibility. But when I'm talking to someone, I'm listening to what they're saying, I'm not really thinking about that stuff anymore. I just want to be understood, and I want to ensure that that person is heard. However, there is one language pattern which stands out from all the rest, and for me really is the kind of oil that makes the whole thing kind of work smoothly. It's probably one that you've heard of. It's pacing and leading. You can get some really good ideas about this from Patterns Volume 1, and also another book that I recommend, even though it's probably 20 years old now, Training Trances by John Overdorf and Julie Silverthorne. Great book. What do we want to lead people towards? Well, I guess it depends on your application of hypnosis, but primarily we want to lead them toward the result, the outcome that they want. That may be an attitude, a state of mind, something they arrive at, after making a decision or a change. We may wish to lead them into hypnosis. If you frame that as trance, then you may want to lead them into trance or trance-like states. You may wish to lead them toward relaxation or other resourceful states of mind. So we have this lead. To get there, a useful thing to do is to pace your client's experience, to literally begin where they're at right now and to gradually begin shifting their attention toward where you want them to be. Now, this was often pitched as a kind of rapport building exercise. We'll kind of start and I'll match, and it kind of creates something of a yes set in the client, in that they just kind of agree with what you're saying, and gradually you can build rapport and kind of nudge them where you want to go. For me, it's not really about building rapport. It's more by describing your ongoing experience, I can kind of get hooks into that experience, and again, just kind of begin to describe your inner experience with what appears to be some clarity, but in fact, I'm speaking quite ambiguously. So think of it this way. Imagine there are perhaps 3 different levels of pacing. The first level really just refers to this consensual reality. It's me making statements that I know you will verify as being true. Not just statements you'll verify as being true, but statements that are so obvious you won't even really need to kind of move your attention or consider them in any way to verify them as fact. So it may be things like you are sitting there with your eyes open, watching this video, listening to me. If I was using this kind of as an induction, I may ask my client to close their eyes and say, that's right, with your eyes closed, as you sit there, listening to the sound of my voice, you can perhaps be aware of, and then I would begin to pace some other things. The second level of pacing I'd like to talk about is also going to really amount to a bunch of statements that you will verify as being a fact. But with regard to most of these statements, you will need to briefly turn your attention toward the thing to verified. These are things that would normally be outside of your conscious awareness, if you'd like to put it that way. So, following some statements that you will verify as being fact, I may begin to say things about other sounds, the sounds in the room, even sounds outside the room, the feeling of your feet on the floor, the sensation of your back against the chair. In other words, as I say these things, your attention moves to the sounds in the room, the sounds outside the room, to your feet, to your back. And it's a very subtle shift, but it's a very important shift. Because in effect, I am now managing your attention and moving it around. But there's nothing for you to kind of resist or pull back against, because everything I'm saying will immediately be validated as true, as fact. The third level of pacing, which is where I really want to be, where I really want to kind of be moving toward, is with regard to, if you like, our non-consensual reality. This is your personal inner experience, of which I know nothing. I could guess, I could perhaps suggest it goes in a certain direction, but at this point I'm still pacing. So I can't tell you what you're thinking. I can't tell you how you're feeling. I can't really tell you if you are drifting in to a particular state, but I can begin to allude to these things. And I can do that with rather vague and ambiguous language, what Erickson called being artfully vague. So I may begin to talk to you about the thoughts, colours in your mind's eye, thoughts and images drifting through your mind, feelings, sensations. Now, if we kind of begin to dance between these three, then every now and again I can tag on a little lead. So, first of all, I could simply use the word and. So as you sit there listening to me, aware of the sound of my voice, the sounds outside the room, you may become aware of the feeling of your feet on the floor, your back against the chair, and begin to relax. And that simple little lead tagged on the end tends to just not go unnoticed, but just be taken, just be absorbed. That's quite a weak link to just say and. So we can also begin to imply a cause, even though the cause may be a completely illogical link. We can begin to use words like aware and notice and realise. So as you sit there watching this video, listening to me, you may begin to notice that as you listen, you can begin to relax. You may even become aware of other sounds, sounds outside the room, feelings, the feeling of your back against the chair, and the gradual alteration of your awareness as you continue to drift inside. So you'll notice there are a couple of implied causes. There's no real reason why sitting there and listening to me and being aware of feelings and sounds would encourage you to drift into a particular state. But again, we can begin to lead your attention toward those ideas. You can, if you like, firm up this cause by making it more of a cause and effect. As you listen to me, you will continue to drift deeper and deeper. As these thoughts go through your mind, your creative imagination is going to go to work on this problem. It's going to begin to go through a variety of ideas at some level of mind and begin to propose solutions. So there's many ways you can use this. Certainly you can use it in conversation and in discussion at the beginning of the session. This is a great way of showing that you are listening to what the client's telling you. You can essentially repeat it back to them. You can pace what they've just told you. Secondly, we can use it as our induction. And many of the examples I was giving you there are really kind of a progressive type induction. Thirdly, we can use this in the session itself. And again, this is where it really becomes the oil that makes the whole thing work for me. Let's say, for example, I was making an effort to try to get your hand to move, to levitate automatically with some kind of ideomotor movement, perhaps as an ideomotor signal. I may say something like, in a moment I will touch the back of your left hand and it will begin to lift. And let's say I touch the hand and it doesn't move at all. This is not a problem if we can pace and lead. So as you look at that hand, you can become aware of a variety of sensations. It may be the feeling in your thumb or a finger. It may be the wrist that begins to move first. You may even know before I do. In other words, I can keep referring to things that I know you are experiencing, things that I know you will have to turn your attention to, and then again I can just keep suggesting it will twitch, it will move, it will lift. And this allows me to turn 2 seconds into 20 seconds or 20 seconds into 2 minutes. If you're in the middle of a session and for some reason there's some disruption, there's noises outside, there are dogs barking, there are car alarms going off or something like that, it's no reason to worry, it's no reason to panic. If it doesn't bother you, it won't bother your client. Especially if you utilize it, if you pace their ongoing experience. The sound of the dogs barking outside, other people going about their day will just remind you why you're here and send you deeper and deeper into this understanding. If a tear was to roll down somebody's face, well, we could stop the session and hand them a box of tissues. Or we could say, as that tear rolls down your face, those negative thoughts and feelings are leaving your body, they're leaving your mind. So again, utilize their ongoing experience, point their attention at that border between things they are normally aware of and consciously unaware of, and just lead that person where you want them to go. I really suggest that you dig into Patterns Volume 1, Training Trances, and if you have any questions about pacing and leading you think I may be able to help you with, then please just get in touch with me.